My philosophy of cooking is based very heavily around science. I use a lot of different equipment to most normal kitchens, and the reason behind this is, for me, it's purely about taste. My food is based purely on flavour. Everybody that eats my food understands it immediately, and it's always the comments back from fellow chefs or from the diners. They say they've never eaten food that's that tasty, in the sense that we've gone through lots of processes behind the scenes to accentuate the flavours of the ingredients themselves, through natural processes, through using scientific approaches. So for me, my philosophy is flavour first, flavour first, then aroma. I mean, really, it should be aroma first, because that's the first sense you get. But aroma, flavour, and never sight. I'm not interested how my food looks. It's purely about how it tastes. We always do the beautiful bit at the end, but for me, it's purely about taste. Why did I choose Singapore? I was running the #1 restaurant in Australia called Vue de Monde for about 9 years, and I felt ready. It was time to do my own thing, and very fortunately, a lovely Singaporean lady approached me one day and said, "Why don't you have your own restaurant?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't have the money." And so she convinced me to come over to Singapore and do something there, which she backed me with, and she's my business partner. It was scary because I'd spent nearly 9 to 10 years building a reputation for myself in Australia. So really had to start from scratch again, which was a challenge, especially Singapore. Back then there was only high-end or hawker restaurants, like the street food. So there was a challenge to get people to understand my style of cooking, because back then, it wasn't different to anybody in Australia. My food was very well regarded, but Singaporeans felt that my food was slightly weird or different, and the concept of Tippling Club is about food and cocktails. So people would come to the restaurant, locals would come to the restaurant and ask, "Oh, I'll have a martini," and you'd make them a martini, and they'd go, "Oh, it's too strong." It's like, "But you ordered a martini." Like, they're asking for sugar syrup to put in their martini, and they're not taking anything away from them, but their palates weren't educated in a sense, and there was nothing like my food on the market, or nothing like my cocktails on the market in Singapore at the time. So you could say we were a pioneer of the whole food and cocktail scene in Singapore. Now there's a restaurant bar opening every week, and customers come, and I've actually seen a massive change in the palate. But Singaporeans are very quick to educate themselves, but they need to be educated. And I suppose we educated them how to drink good cocktails and eat really high-end, good quality food. So, and now we're seeing a trend into sort of more middle-end dining, which never existed before. I mean, I have 2 other restaurants that are sort of more casual, fun fare sort of style. And now Singaporeans, you see, they only eat in hawker centres all year round, and then they do their one big meal in a plush restaurant, once a year. Now it's changed dramatically. We see a lot of locals dining in our restaurant every night, so it's good. It's tough. I mean, I'm here at World of Flavours. It's all to do with Asia, and I'm cooking my food. I don't really have an influence of Asian. It's not entirely true. I'm very heavily focused towards Japanese ingredients, although it won't be prevalent on the menu. You won't read it, you wouldn't know. But for me, the best produce in the world comes from Japan. Their attention to detail, and I'm, I suppose, a perfectionist. I only want to use the best produce. So I find that we buy a lot of our produce from Japan. But yeah, I mean, every now and again we'll take a Singaporean favourite like hawker dish, and we'll have a play with it just to see if we can work it into a new form or a new take on a classic Singaporean dish. And we've done a few. I mean, we've done a chili crab, we've done oyster omelette, we've done a few different dishes like that. I mean, one of our little snacks on the amuse bouche, we call them snacks, is a Singaporean curry, but it's a take on a Singaporean curry. It's a little mousse in a pot with little puffed rice and fried curry leaves and everything. It looks like a little yogurt pot. So we do play with it, we dabble with it, but it's probably every now and again. I'd prefer to have just what's in my head is on the plate. I don't like to be influenced by other things. Today in about an hour, I'm going to stitch myself up. We've done a crab onion ring. It's a puree of onion that is set with a bonding agent that allows us to gel it when it's hot instead of cold. And then it's rolled in a puffed onion prawn cracker, like a prawn cracker. We call it a krupuk in Asia. And basically we deep fry it and the thing puffs up, but it's got, when it sits on the bench for about 5 minutes, the puree turns back to a liquid. So when they bite into it, they've got like a liquid onion ring. And it's served with a little bit of crab and apple salad and a little sour cream emulsion. The idea is the dish is based on the flavor profile of sour cream Pringles. Another dish we're doing later in the week is my wagyu with textures of umami. So it's a dish that's very personal to me. I've spent many years doing research into different salts and natural umamis and working out how to influence that into my food to enhance the flavor. Like I said, it's all about, for me, enhancing flavors. So the dish is basically a dish that is just absolutely loaded with natural umami, natural glutamates. And when you eat the dish, it kind of takes you on a bit of a journey. We have a little piece of roasted wagyu, but then we thinly slice some wagyu and we put it in between sheets of konbu seaweed and we put it under vacuum. And what happens is the beef gets cured by the salt content of the seaweed, leaving behind a really nice seaweed flavor. It's served with a little Japanese fruit tomato, a little bit of burrata with horseradish. So the dish eats like a roast beef and horseradish, you know, but then there's these flavors of beautiful ripe tomato, the ocean, you know, it really stimulates the palate when you eat. And there's no salt anywhere added in the dish. It's just natural glutamate. To finish off, I'm doing a little dessert, and it's called Textures of Milk. So the idea is taking an ingredient everyday use. It's quite simple, and seeing how far we can take it. So we do a little sago cooked in coconut milk with a little yogurt sorbet, and it's finished off with an almond milk meringue, which is super light. And I took some of the students yesterday foraging out in the woods for some wild oxalis, which we found lots of, which is awesome. It's a type of wild sorrel, and that's just going to add a really nice acid note to the dish and lift it all up. What I do is quite unique. It's different. Will be a first time seeing it for them. You know, you can go to a lot of culinary congresses and you see a lot of chefs doing the same thing. I think what I have is unique in the sense that I don't even like to eat in other people's restaurants, you know, anymore. You know, I don't want to be influenced by other styles. I only want to be influenced by my own emotions, by the produce of the season. And, you know, what we do at the restaurant, I have a very beautiful R&D kitchen on the second floor of my restaurant where we have a team of chefs that constantly working with me to develop new ideas. And we sit down and we always ask ourselves, have we seen this before? Have we seen this before? Yes, and like, you know, and if one little young commie chef turns around to me and says, oh, I've seen something like that somewhere, it's like, okay, stop, we don't do it, we stop, you know? So always making sure that our food is new, inventive, exciting. And I think that's what I'm bringing to the table today. I suppose you've got a long road ahead, you know, don't rush into it. I mean, a lot of young chefs are plagued, unfortunately, by the concept of money. You've got to realize that the money comes at the end, you know. You don't chase a job for money. It's about passion, and that's what cooking is all about, you know. And don't try to rush your career. Take your time, work as many good restaurants as you can, build up a good repertoire of knowledge. But that takes years, you know. That takes a long time, you know. I mean, I was fortunate. I started cooking when I was 13 in a Michelin-star restaurant. You know? So I've had a long time. But I didn't become, from 13, I didn't become a head chef of a restaurant till I was like 28. You know, so it's important that you study hard, you learn everything there is to learn, and don't get blinded by the hype of certain restaurants. You know, I sometimes think that people flock to restaurants because of the publicity they get or the hype they get. You know, choose the restaurants you work at carefully. And I think, you know, go and try and get overseas, try and put yourself into a awkward situation in terms of the language barrier. Don't be afraid, because cooking's a universal language, you know, so you'll always get by in a foreign country, you know, and that's important to go and see something else. Like learn different styles. Don't just stick to cooking French. Try and understand Japanese, try and understand, you know, a little bit of Spanish, you know, and embrace it and learn as much as you can.